Hey, good morning. I woke up a little bit early today and I thought, why don't I start shooting some of my thoughts here? This isn't going to be polished, it isn't going to be pretty, perhaps. Maybe I should have had a shower and put some makeup on. Kidding. Um, but I wanted to talk a little bit about all this climate change talk that's out there. We are having a real effect on not just the weather and how comfortable we are, but we're having a real effect on the planet's ability to recover. It used to be that man did a whole bunch of damage and you gave it a couple of years, nature kind of clawed back and could recover. But the climate scientists are saying something, well, if we're not immune or inoculated to the message at this point, they're saying something new. And what they're saying is the profound effects that we have made by burning carbon are actually reducing to some kind of a tipping point where there may be no recovery. They're reducing the planet's ability to recover. And so that's not just atmospheric carbon is at a level that it's never been at before, since record keeping and the fossil record and other things like that. But the oceans are actually warmer. And oh, hey, look, the Larsen B shelf just calved a large chunk of ice the size of New Hampshire, I think it was. No, sorry, Delaware. Delaware smaller. I got to work on my U.S. geography, but this is happening right now. This isn't theoretical. This isn't future state. This is right now. This stuff is happening. California and British Columbia have been ravaged by wildfires, some of the worst in their history in the last few years. And, the way it hits the news is, oh my goodness, we blew through our firefighting budget again. Seems to me there's a whole lot of carbon sitting in the forests that's suddenly getting released. So, how do we fix this? Well, the first thing that we don't do is we don't anesthetize ourselves to the pain. We don't just say, oh, well, I wonder what's on TV and ignore it. We actually have to make changes. One of the dangers when there's a big problem is that people look at the big, huge problem, the whole thing in its entirety, and say, I can't fix that. And so they do nothing. And they go get the bucket of Baskin Robbins ice cream out of the, no, I'm not being paid, out of the freezer, and they eat that, and then they go watch Game of Thrones or something if they pay for cable. So that would be a stupid response. And you're probably not stupid, so don't do that. The key is everything that you do has an effect. If you drive an unnecessary mile in a gas car, then you're going to put unnecessary carbon into the atmosphere. If you can make small changes, all of that is going to add up. It's kind of like smoking. Well, let me explain what I mean. With smoking, in North America, we had a huge percentage of people smoking. My parents, they worked in the healthcare industry for years, and they've told the story of, going into the board meetings or the physicians' meetings at the hospital, and the air would just be blue with smoke. My parents did not smoke. Well, not directly, but they had years and years of secondhand smoke when they worked in hospital administration because all the doctors and everybody else in the room was smoking. Every boardroom table had an ashtray. Every table in McDonald's had an ashtray. Why? Because every table in McDonald's was a smoking table. And some of you young fellers, some of you Generation Y or millennials or whatever, you're thinking, well, that's stupid. Well, you know what? Everybody was doing it. And nobody really knew that it was a problem. The Marlboro people had pictures of doctors in white lab coats talking about how it made them feel invigorated and healthy. The Marlboro man, basically a rugged cowboy guy looking all healthy. So, bit of a tangent, but to make a point. Culturally, it was totally acceptable. It was such a good idea to smoke, to blow your money on that. And then you'd have people who are, pack a day, 3 packs a day, whatever. So a little bit of science has happened. Science seems to be a relatively new thing. And we now understand, this is how you get lung cancer and die. So a lot of people have made a really positive choice and said, you know what, I'm going to cut back. I'm going to smoke less. Other people have said, I'm going to quit completely. We've raised a generation now where most of the kids are saying, why would I smoke? That's stupid. And this is brilliant. This is a huge change. But we didn't get there overnight. We started this in the 1970s, the 1980s, the 1990s, the 2000s, the 2010s. And here we are in 2017 with a culture that says, well, 89% of us don't smoke. 11% of us say, no, this is a really good idea. I'm going to light something on fire and put it in my mouth. Hey, if you're terribly offended by this, go ahead, be offended. I'm just talking about the culture, and I'm talking about the shift away from smoking, and I'm talking about the science that says smoking causes cancer and kills people. Because those are just facts. They're not emotional. It's just the way it is. I remember when like non-smoking rights was a thing, when people had to like band together to try and convince restaurants to have no smoking sections. And what the restaurants would do is grudgingly give, a percentage of their tables would have a no smoking sign put on the table, like you can't smoke at this particular table. But of course we all breathe the same air in the restaurant, right? And so this has been this uphill battle to have the right to breathe clean air when it comes to smoking. And so what we've seen is kind of this bell curve where culturally we were headed up in this direction of, we're smoking and we're damaging our lungs and we're teaching our children to do the same. And science, oh, come on, I don't think it's a real problem. I think those scientists might be biased. We should all smoke. It's a great idea. A certain percentage of our disposable income should go to the tobacco companies. And, tobacco, it's natural. Right? Exactly. Like we all thought this was a great idea. And then what happened is there started to be a little bit of caution. People were like, well, maybe there's a problem here. And there were some scientific studies, the best kind. And, it started to level out where instead of eliminating smoking or changing smoking culture, we had people exercising a little bit of culture. Like, let's study this. Let's see if it's real. And then we had some real evidence. We had the Surgeon General saying the unpopular thing to smokers at that point in time, or to mainstream culture at that time, that smoking causes cancer. Pregnant people should not be smoking, etc. And so we had this cultural change. I'm trying to illustrate a bell curve with the finger in front of a forest. Yeah, good luck with that. So bring it back so it actually looks like a finger. There we go. So here's the idea, right? So now we're not increasing smoking or increasing damage. We actually have some cultural understanding that this is a bad idea, and so it's starting to go back down. So we're actually just reducing harm at this point. We'll put filters on the cigarettes to filter out the tar. We'll have low tar cigarettes, and you'd see that in the advertising, like in Brewster's Millions and things like that in the movies. Let's reduce harm but still smoke was sort of a thing, and then we started to really make headway. We have tools like the nicotine patch to help people to stop. We had public health education that was going out that was really effective, and smoking rates started to go down. And so as those smoking rates started to go down, cancer rates and other health effects, like heart attacks and things like that, started to go down. And I was reading some brochures that were saying, the positive effects of stopping smoking start like 2 minutes after you quit. So the idea is, no, just don't smoke another one. That's actually extremely helpful. So we're down to in North America, down to 11%. So I've seen this bell curve where it's like, oh no, it's culturally a good idea, and it goes up, and then we start to have some pause about that, and we start to research it, and the culture starts to change a little bit. And of course, we have some lead people like, hey, I quit, and I want to tell everybody. And then we have oh, everybody else is quitting, maybe I should quit too. And then we have oh no, I'm still a diehard smoker, well, maybe I'll stop. It's for the children. I'd like to be around. I'd like to see my grandchildren, things like that. And so it's this gradual process. And change like that pattern of change is pretty normal. So think about 80% of the culture smoking. Every teenager smokes, blah, 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 blah. And then think well, how could we just stop that? It's impossible to just turn the culture like that. But in the case of smoking, it was gradual, it was repetitive, it was insistent, it was people taking time out of their day to go address, oh, sun's coming up. Why don't you guys have a look at that? I don't know if you can see that. It's pretty shiny. I'm fortunate enough, I live in British Columbia, and actually today, I don't know if you can see the smoke on the mountains. There's very little smoke today because the smoke from the forest fires is being clearing for us. We've had many, many days of smoky skies. And we're in the lower mainland where it's actually pretty clear compared to places like Kamloops that hit 47 on a scale of 1 to 10. So that's the thing. The danger with these big, huge issues is that we throw up our hands and say, get me some Ben and Jerry's, I'm going to go watch Netflix. Rather than actually speaking up in conversation, actually advocating for change, actually writing your government, influencing policy decisions. And it can be small things. It can be like advocating for telecommuting or carpooling at your workplace. Just drop a word in there. If you get people off the road, or you start to improve things. Remember, it's not about going from, we're headed for disaster to it's all solved now. It's about just starting to turn that curve. And if you influence that curve at all in your own personal life, awesome. That's a difference for you. Maybe in some future recordings, I'll talk about some of those changes that I made. And how they really haven't been expensive, horrible, life-changing changes. I still live pretty normally, but I'm definitely reducing my impact. So, I'm up here on the curve. Yeah. So I want to encourage you, like, make some small changes. Make some choices. Make a couple choices every day just to live a little cleaner, if you will, a little less carbon, a little less waste. And heck, if 7-8 billion people do that, it'll make a huge difference. All right. Have an awesome day. Sun's coming up. Talk to you later.